Welcome back here with this edition of Talking Taxes, and we've put the spotlight on taxation with respect to alternative investment funds, particularly Category 3 funds. And the question at hand is, are they being overtaxed, so to speak? Because a lot of these funds have to pay tax from the dispensation of business income, which means 30% taxation. They do not get the advantage of the capital gains regime. So, Mr. Pai, let me come back to you. I mean, I'm sure there must be some thought process. I mean, would you hazard a guess as to why the government is a little hesitant in, granting the same sort of tax relief, the same capital gains dispensation to Category 3? Is there a case that this is actually, a business activity, a trading activity, which is why they're being subject to higher tax?
Well, I think first the income tax department does not understand the business logic and the process behind all these investment vehicles. I don't think they spend enough time researching or working with industry to understand what motivates people to invest in these funds, why they're required, etc. So I think they're beyond the curve and need to catch up. There has to be much more interactions. Second, they feel that people who run hedge funds, and there's only one category of AIF3, they know if they invest directly into the marketplace, they end up paying tax because it's taken as business income. So if you go through a fund, why should not the fund pay the tax? So that's the logic they're trying to have, whereas we're trying to dissuade them to say that these are all collective instruments, and here you have a portfolio management strategy, and you can get huge amounts of money, and this is that. And lastly, they have to accept that in terms of fund classification, maybe SEBI is a much better entity to classify those funds, because SEBI is in touch with global regulators. They understand how the global financial markets work, what kind of structures are required, and they should go with the SEBI classification rather than trying to double guess and come up with their own classification, and work together with SEBI and come to a simple classification that all pooled vehicles will have their income tax only in the hands of the investor, and the entities will not be taxed, because like world over, they're all passive vehicles and not active vehicles. I think the only active vehicle will be the asset management company, which gets a fee and which should be located in India, and we should get more and more of them, and the fees should be taxed based upon profits. I think these are the three main points in my view, and I think it's time that all of us came together. But I have a very large point to make. By 2025, I estimate the total value of market cap of the Indian capital markets to be around $4 trillion. It's around $1.8 trillion today. So by 2025, it should go to $4 trillion. We could have foreign capital to the extent of 25%. That's $1 trillion. And that means for the next 10 years, maybe we'll get maybe $150, $200 billion. We need at least $300 to $400 billion to come in to improve liquidity in India, to lower our cost of capital and make us globally competitive. If India has to be a global power, and India's ambition is to be a global power, and if Mumbai has to be a global financial center, we need all the fund managers who manage investment in India to come to Mumbai and work out of Mumbai and create that kind of skills and ecosystem and all the buzz that is required, and not sit in Singapore or Dubai or London or Hong Kong or elsewhere, which has happened now. So I think for all these purposes, government has to take a very large decision, look at it from all aspects, and say that we're going to make it simple and easy, like the United States, like global place, and make it a vehicle which is passive, and only investors will be taxed. So I think we need a very large issue, a policy decision to be taken.
I totally get your point, but let's also try and understand where AIF Category 3 stands here in India vis-a-vis some of the global practices. So Gautam, come in on this. I mean, how are hedge funds taxed internationally? What are the rates of taxation we're talking about?
Yeah, so, each country obviously has its different rate of taxes on capital gains, but I think the important point is that, as Mr. Pai mentioned, most jurisdictions would grant a kind of a pass-through status so that investors land up paying the tax, and the government has done that for Category 1 and 2. I think it's just the Category 3 piece which, needs to be kind of looked at. I think another important aspect of this, and Mr. Pai alluded to that, is that the entire FPI community today is investing in India and has got his funds managed by managers sitting outside the country. A clarity or a pass-through status on the Category 3 would really mean that FPIs can now invest the entire pool of capital in a SEBI-registered Category 3 vehicle, managed by a manager sitting out of Mumbai or Bangalore or Delhi and investing in India. And therefore, the entire fees flows locally. You get your income taxes, service tax, and the whole manpower and the whole ecosystem starts getting built up. We keep referring to Category 3 as hedge funds, right? I'll just like to again clarify, it's not necessarily only hedge funds. As per SEBI regulations, any fund which invests primarily in listed securities, which means at least 50% of its AUM is in listed securities, has to necessarily register as a Category 3 fund.
And it's only Category 3 funds which can also trade in derivatives, right?
Yes.
Listed derivatives.
Yes.
Is what we're talking about.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So half of your AUM is enlisted, whether it's long, short-term capital gains, business income, whatever, you have to register as Category 3.
Yeah. Nandita, come in on this. This whole competition that AIFs Category 3 have to face with a lot of the offshore structures. What do you see around you? What are the trends and sort of how difficult is it for a Category 3 hedge fund manager based out of India?
So I think it's virtually impossible at this time. And you can see, the growth of the industry is stunted. You have just about 6,000 crores that's come in. I mean, you look at the mutual fund industry, and we're seeing the monthly numbers and the inflows just coming domestically. It's 5 trillion just in equity mutual funds. And so there is no parity at all. And I think taxation is a big enough issue. And let me point out that mutual funds are allowed to use derivative instruments to hedge. And so since they're able to do it, it stands to reason that AIF Cat 3 which do use derivative instruments for hedging their long strategies, should also be given the same tax treatment. To me, it's consistency, simplicity. These are the hallmarks of a good taxation policy, wherein, once this small thing is done, it's a small tweak, it doesn't require a very big piece of legislation, we can get on with our lives, and I don't see why this industry cannot grow as big as China's in terms of size. And I really want to see the day when India's cost of capital comes down that dramatically. It will make such a big difference to all the Prime Minister's programs, infrastructure development, and Digital India, and what have you. And I think it's a very, very important and very misunderstood piece of the whole picture.
Gautam, just for understanding, is there any other class or category of investors putting in money into the Indian equity market, whether it's, securities or derivatives, and is being taxed at 30%, which is business income? Any other class of investors or funds that come to mind, whether offshore or domestic?
Actually, it's the other way around. If you are investing from overseas, the income tax law was amended to say the income of every FPI would be deemed to be capital gains in nature.
Okay.
Right? So they would land up paying tax at zero.
Even if you're doing long, short, daily trades, whatever you might be doing.
Yeah. So securities invested by FPIs are treated as capital assets, and therefore you land up paying 0 or 15%. Right? Whereas for a domestic investor, it could be 0, 15 or 30. And if a domestic investor is coming through a Category 3, same investment, 0, 15 unlikely, most likely be 30. Right?
Okay.
Now, there have been reasons as to why the laws have evolved to this, right? And I must compliment the government for giving clarity and certainty on 1 and 2, Category 1 and 2. And on the very big, circular which came out in Feb 16, with saying if you and I as investors hold listed shares, and we've held them for 12 months, we have the right to, choose that it should be capital gains. And nobody can litigate on that.
Okay.
So that was a very big development, last year. But as I said, this is evolving, and maybe Category 3 now needs to be looked at. It's reached that level of maturity where, somebody needs to take a hard look.
So, Mr. Pai, any final thoughts? Any message that you'd like to give to the tax man in case he or she is watching?
Well, the message I would like to get is that you're not going to lose tax revenues. You will gain tax revenues if more capital comes in, India becomes more competitive, the cost of capital comes down, and we get the entire fund management industry here. Because with that kind of an expertise, we can manage 3 to 4 times the funds that are being managed here, and their income will be taxed, and that's going to be a huge, huge potential benefit in terms of taxation, employment, skill development, making Mumbai the global financial center, and all the strategic things. Our growth is stunted. We are all like dwarfs in a country which is growing, and if you really want to grow your taxes, please be easy on this, and you're easy on the foreigners. Why do discriminating against an Indian citizen? What crime have you done to be born an Indian and stay in India and try to fight the battle for India? Why are you doing this to us? Please treat us equal to foreigners that you treat in taxation, and not worse off. Don't discriminate against us just because we happen to be Indian citizens, and don't hurt us, and let Indian capital play a great role too. This is a message I would like to give the taxmen and our political leaders.
All right, Nandita, Mr. Pai and Gautam, many thanks for joining into this special conversation. That's it for now.